These Small Hours with Russell Cordell Staker. My friends, welcome back. This is Russell Cordell Staker, and you are listening to These Small Hours podcast. It's the official first day of summer, the 21st of June, 2022. I'm down here in Austin, Texas. It's hot. I know it's hot over a good majority of this country. I hope you're keeping cool and trying your best to enjoy this day as best as you can. Today we're going to read the fourth segment or portion, as I've been breaking it up, of the 1855 original edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. I've been really enjoying the process of thinking through this. Obviously, I'm reading it and producing a podcast around this, but in between the lines and in between these sessions in which I've been putting these portions into audio recordings, my mind has been in a lot of thought around the concepts and the language of what Walt Whitman was considering. And actually, I should probably rephrase that. I'm not sure I have any idea what Walt Whitman was considering, but his words, the language that he uses, puts into play in my mind various points of consideration about the world that I see, and trying as best as I can to put myself possibly in his shoes at the time that he was writing it. And I think this is also one of the ever-evolving and true gifts of literature, of language itself, is that it encapsulates a moment and then it keeps it forever, as if it's a brand new moment still happening. And the Leaves of Grass, I think it's fitting also that I'm reading this right at the very beginning, at the height of summer. Certainly Leaves of Grass, just by its title, has the sound of summer to it. This particular portion that I'm about to read, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of this on the flip side when we get through after I read this particular portion, but one of the concepts that really stood out for me was this idea of the sounds of life and the sounds of silence. And as you listen to what I'm about to read from Whitman, I want you to pay attention to where you think you might hear some of what that might describe. And there are some concepts, or at least some ideas around that really came out for me, and I want to kind of touch on a few of those once I get through the reading of this. I want to share just a quick anecdote before I start portion 4 of this reading today. I was watching an ad. I was actually watching a news brief of something, and I don't remember what it was, but I was on YouTube, and I was forced to have to watch an ad, as we all are when you go to watch some video clip that you're wanting to watch, and then you're stuck watching an ad. And this particular ad was for the pain medication Aleve. I think it's a relatively new ad, but it really struck me. And I only saw it just this once, and I'm going to just briefly paraphrase what I saw. And I'm not trying to take away from what Aleve was saying, or this isn't about me taking away from or adding any kind of commentary to their product, certainly the pain relief that their medication would offer. But it was a working woman who works at a restaurant, obviously working late hours, and she's exhausted and tired and in pain. And the concept around the ad was that she's doing her work for her, I believe it's her daughter in the video. And the advertisement asks, while it shows her working hard and hitting that wall where she's got to keep going because she doesn't have a choice, she's got to work. And many of us out there, I'm in the same boat. When you're doing your job that you got to do that, only covers so many bills, and you're doing absolutely everything you can to get through that day, and your body is just exhausted and you're taxed all the way to the max. Sometimes you need that little kick, something that takes some of that pain away. And I'm not saying there's no escapism here. I'm just talking about physical pain and maybe the worry and the weight of the hours that are presented in the moment of trying to get through from point A to point B within a particular shift, or a moment in life. But in this ad, obviously, she had some physical pain, and she takes the Aleve, and it shows her strapping on her waist apron to get back to work at the expediting line of this restaurant. And then as the ad is coming to a conclusion, it shows her sitting home in the convenience and the comfort of her small kitchen at the kitchen table, giving her daughter some love and just reaching over, putting her arm around her. And the concept is that, she did what she needed to do for her daughter. How do you do this? What is it we do, the things that we do for those that we love? that ad really, it really captured me, and I'm glad I saw it. I didn't want to watch a television ad in the clip that I was trying to get to, and now I don't even remember what the news thing was because the ad actually stood out. And it's very fitting and rather serendipitous that I saw that just before I get ready to record this, because a lot of what I was picking up on and thinking about since the last time I produced the podcast where I read portion 3, what I've read recently and what I'm about to share with you from Whitman in this particular segment has to do with this concept of bridging gaps and certainly the sounds and the motions of life. And one of the themes that, if you haven't picked up on it, that I've probably been pretty predominant in coming around to, and obviously in the title of my own podcast, These Small Hours, there is a phrase even within this particular segment, a portion that Whitman brings out where he says, and I quote, "but this hour." And this goes in line with the ad that I just saw, that in the hour, in the moment of need, of doing what we've got to do to bridge the gaps, to carry the water, to quell the fire that we have to get through, the pain, the worry, the doubt, the unknown, the fear of the future, and this sense of whatever is to come, not sure that we're preparing ourselves as best as we can for that, but also doing everything we can for those that we love, for the idea of the life that we're trying to live, for the hope of a better day. Those sorts of things came out very clearly in this particular portion that I'm about to read to you from Whitman. And so in watching that ad, and I want to just emphasize the point of what was really powerful for that was seeing this mother giving her all, knowing that she probably didn't have much choice anyway, but she would have done what she had to do, and she certainly was for her daughter. We in this life, a lot of times, and I think as we get older, that becomes ultimately the equation of our life. Now, there are some people out there that don't have to worry about that, and more power to them. But for a vast majority of us out there, the choices are very, very black and white in terms of what we have to do on a daily basis to survive, to take care of those that we love, to make sure that they have what they need, and at the same time to carve out enough space for ourselves to exist in the moment of what we have to give, so that it doesn't just completely take everything that we've got, so to speak. And I really like the idea, and I'm not going to make a direct corollary here, but this is where language for me is much like that pain assuagement, whether it's taking a leave or whatever. And I'm not suggesting that we have to take anything. It's not about numbing the pain. It's not about taking away the pain. It's about recognizing that we have limits. And so now I'm kind of putting my own sense on this, and I'm going to go beyond the ad, so we'll let the ad go at this point. But with Whitman, and what triggered my thinking now about this is the idea that the language for me is a fulfillment of these moments where I'm not sure that I've got everything that I need in terms of the energy just to carry me through a given day or a week or a month, or maybe my best effort isn't enough to get me to what I used to think I was going to be. And yet I carry forward with the same light and hope and the imagination in my heart to get myself there. And in reading certain things, certainly when I come across the writings of a Walt Whitman or some other writer that I find, or I see something in life that gives me hope, certainly paying attention to the world around me and finding the good in spaces that sometimes it's hard to find the good, finding something inside of myself that's an extra gear to keep moving forward. This sense of identity, of hope, of not quitting, of seeing the moment, but this hour, through to its fulfillment as best as I can do that. That's the magic of potentially carrying forward. And maybe that's the message that Whitman was trying to convey. And again, this is me just reading something into what I was reading that has the impact to add to the sounds of the life that we're living, the sounds of the silence of the life that we're living. And sometimes those gaps, those void moments, as I sometimes feel there are, where maybe my brain isn't even firing because the moment is requiring everything that I've got just to get through it. And I'm doing what I can and still maintaining this idea that maybe I'm going to figure out the bigger picture of what is out there for me to understand and experience so that I feel fulfilled in the moment. Those are the kinds of things that I'm searching words for, or searching for the words to put identity to the experience of a particular moment. And so if I'm saying this, and I hopefully said this well enough to at least get you thinking prior to me beginning this portion. I want you to just let some of what I put out there, even in the fragment of my thought here, to carry forward now as we read the fourth portion of Walt Whitman's 1855 Leaves of Grass. And on the other end of this, I have a couple of thoughts to bring this through. Ultimately, the experience of reading anything, and particularly in this moment of reading Whitman, is to be a reminder of the fact that this time is important, that every minute counts, and that there is always something there that can make this as fulfilling as any other moment in our lives, and that before this hour and for this moment, the sounds of the life around us, the pursuits that we have, even in the pain that we probably carry, even when we don't think we're in pain, there are things that we have to sacrifice for. There is a hope that it's going to be enough, and that we will be somewhat fulfilled, if not given a better understanding of what's to come in the fulfillment of our own lives, and hopefully the impact in that positive state around those around us. I can't speak for everybody, and I'm not going to try to. There are people in this world, unfortunately, that they don't think like that. They're not interested in anything other than themselves. I'm not interested in those particular individuals. And I choose to believe that in this life, in this world, there are more of the other individuals that I'm describing, those that do get up, like the woman in that ad, that give their all for somebody else, because it matters enough to them that whatever sacrifice they're giving, including the very power, energy, and spirit of their own body, is enough to lay that down upon the altar of the life to make somebody else's world better, even when the choice is there is no choice. That's what I'm getting at. I think this is much of what Whitman is going to be describing here. So listen kindly, get yourself a cold, cool glass of water or something, sit back and enjoy this next fourth portion of the 1855 Leaves of Grass. Come closer to me. Push close, my lovers, and take the best I possess. Yield closer and give me the best you possess. This is unfinished business with me. How is it with you? I was chilled with the cold types and cylinder and wet paper between us. I pass so poorly with paper and types. I must pass with the contact of bodies and souls. I do not thank you for liking me as I am and liking the touch of me. I know that it is good for you to do so. Were all educations practical and ornamental, well displayed out of me, what would it amount to? Were I as the head teacher or charitable proprietor or wise statesman, what would it amount to? Were I to you as the boss employing and paying you, would that satisfy you? The learned and virtuous and benevolent and the usual terms, a man like me and never the usual terms. Neither a servant nor a master am I. I take no sooner a large price than a small price. I will have my own, whoever enjoys me. I will be even with you, and you shall be even with me. If you are a workman or workwoman, I stand as nigh as the nighest that works in the same shop. If you bestow gifts on your brother or dearest friend, I demand as good as your brother or dearest friend. If your lover or husband or wife is welcome by day or night, I must be personally as welcome. If you have become degraded or ill, then I will become so for your sake. If you remember your foolish and outlawed deeds, do you think I cannot remember my foolish and outlawed deeds? If you carouse at the table I say, I will carouse at the opposite side of the table. If you meet some stranger in the street and love him or her, do I not often meet strangers in the street and love them? If you see a good deal remarkable in me, I see just as much remarkable in you. Why, what have you thought of yourself? Is it you, then, that thought yourself less? Is it you that thought the president greater than you, or the rich better off than you, or the educated wiser than you? Because you were greasy or pimpled, or that you was once drunk, or a thief, or diseased, or rheumatic, or a prostitute, or so now, or from frivolity or impotence, or that you were no scholar, and never saw your name in print, do you give in that you are in any less immortal? Souls of men and women, it is not you I call unseen, unheard, untouchable, untouching. It is not you I go argue pro and con about, and to settle whether you are alive or no. I own publicly who you are, if nobody else owns. And see and hear you, and what you give and take. What is there you cannot give and take? I see not merely that you are polite or white-faced, married or single, citizens of old states or citizens of new states, eminent in some profession, a lady or gentleman in a parlor, or dressed in the jail uniform or pulpit uniform. Not only the free Utahn, Kansian, or Arkansian, not only the free Cuban, not merely the slave, not Mexican native or flatfoot, or Negro from Africa. Iroquois eating the war flesh, fish terror in his lair of rocks and sand. Eskimo in the dark cold snow house, Chinese with his transverse eyes, Bedouin or wandering nomad, or Tabanshik at the head of the droves. Grown, half-grown, and babe, of this country and every country indoors and outdoors I see, and all else is behind or through them. The wife, and she is not one jot less than the husband, the daughter, and she is not as good as the son, the mother, and she is every bit as much as the father. Offspring of those not rich, boys apprenticed to trades, young fellows working on farms and fellows working on farms. The naive, the simple and hardy, he going to the polls to vote, he who has a good time and he who has a bad time, mechanics, southerners, new arrivals, sailors, man-o'-warsmen, merchantmen, coasters. All these I see, but nigher and farther the same I see. None shall escape me, and none shall wish to escape me. I bring what you need, much need, and yet always have. I bring not money or amours or dress or eating, but I bring as good, and send no agent or medium, and offer no representative of value, but offer the value itself. There is something that comes home to one now and perpetually. It is not what is printed or preached or discussed. It eludes discussion in print. It is not to be put in a book. It is not in this book. It is for you, whoever you are. It is no farther from you than your hearing and sight are from you. It is hinted by nearest and commonest and readiest. It is not them, though it is endlessly provoked by them. What is there ready and near you now? You may read in many languages and read nothing about it. You may read the president's message and read nothing about it there. Nothing in the reports from the State Department or Treasury Department, or in the daily papers or the weekly papers, or in the census returns or assessor's returns or prices current or any accounts of stock. The sun and stars that float in the open air, the apple-shaped earth, and we upon it, surely the drift of them is something grand. I do not know what it is except that it is grand, and that it is happiness, and that the enclosing purport of us here is not a speculation or bon mot or reconnaissance, and that it is not something which by luck may turn out well for us, and without luck must be a failure for us, and not something which may yet be retracted in a certain contingency. The light and shade, the curious sense of body and identity, the greed that with perfect complacence devours all things, the endless pride and outstretching of man, unspeakable joys and sorrows, the wonder everyone sees in everyone else he sees, and the wonders that fill each minute of time forever and each acre of surface and space forever. Have you reckoned them as mainly for a trade or farm work, or for the profits of a store, or to achieve yourself a position, or to fill a gentleman's leisure or a lady's leisure? Have you reckoned the landscape took substance and form that it might be painted in a picture, or men and women that they might be written of in song sung, or the attraction of gravity and the great laws of harmonious combinations and the fluids of the air as subjects of the savans, or the brown land and the blue sea for maps and charts, or the stars to be put in constellations and named fancy names, or that the growth of seeds is for agriculture tables, or agriculture itself. Old institutions, these are libraries, legends, collections, and the practice handed along in manufactures. Will we rate them so high? Will we rate our prudence and business so high? I have no objection. I rate them as high as the highest, but a child born of a man and of a woman I rate beyond all rate. We thought our Union grand and our Constitution grand. I do not say they are not grand and good, for they are. I am this day just as much in love with them as you, but I am eternally in love with you and with all my fellows upon the earth. We consider the Bibles and religions divine. I do not say they are not divine. I say they have all grown out of you and may grow out of you still. It is not they who gave the life or give the life. It is you who give the life. Leaves are not more shed from the trees or trees from the earth than they are shed out of you. The sum of all known value and respect I add up in you, whoever you are. The president is up there in the White House for you. It is not for you. It is not you who are here for him. The secretaries act in their bureaus for you. You not here for them. The Congress convenes every December for you. Laws, courts, the forming of states, the charters of cities, the going and coming of commerce and mails are all for you. All doctrines, all politics and civilization exurge from you. All sculpture and monuments and anything inscribed anywhere are tallied in you. The gist of histories and statistics as far back as the records reach is in you this hour, and myths and tales the same. If you were not breathing and walking here, where would they all be? The most renowned poems would be ashes, orations and plays would be vacuums. All architecture is what you do to it when you look upon it. Did you think it was in the white or gray stone, or the lines of the arches and cornices? All music is what awakens from you when you are reminded by the instruments. It is not the violins and the cornets, it is not the oboe, nor the beating drums, nor the notes of the baritone singer singing his sweet romanza, nor those of the men's chorus, nor those of the women's chorus. It is nearer and farther than they. Will the whole come back then? Can each see the signs of the best by a look in the looking glass? Is there nothing greater or more? Does all sit there with you and here with me? The old forever new things, you foolish child, the closest, simplest things, this moment with you. Your person and every particle that relates to your person, the pulses of your brain waiting their chance and encouragement at every deed or sight. Anything you do in public by day and anything you do in secret between days, what is called right and what is called wrong, what you behold or touch, what causes your anger or wonder, the ankle chain of the slave, the bed of the bedhouse, the cards of the gambler, the plates of the forger. What is seen or learned in the street or intuitively learned, what is learned in the public school, spelling, reading, writing, and ciphering, the blackboard and the teacher's diagrams. The panes of the windows and all that appears through them, the going forth in the morning and the aimless spending of the day. What is it that you made money? What is it that you got, what you wanted? The usual routine, the workshop, factory, yard, office, store, or desk, the jaunt of hunting or fishing or the life of hunting or fishing, pasture life, foddering, milking, and herding, and all the personnel and usages. The plum orchard and apple orchard, gardening, seedlings, cuttings, flowers and vines, grains and manures, marrow, clay, loam. The subsoil, plow, the shovel and pick and rake and hoe, irrigation and draining. The curry comb, the horsecloth, the halter and bridle and bits, the very wisps of straw. The barn and barnyard, the bins and mangers, the mows and racks, manufactures, commerce, engineering, the building of cities and every trade carried on there, and the implements of every trade, the anvil and tongs and hammer, the axe and wedge, the square and miter and jointer and smoothing plane, the plumb bob and trowel and level, the wall scaffold and the work of walls and ceilings or any mason work, the ship's compass, the sailor's tarpaulin, the stays and lanyards, and the ground tackle for anchoring or mooring, the sloop's tiller and pilot's wheel and bell, the yacht or fish smack, the great gay pennanted 300-foot steamboat under full headway with her proud fat breasts and her delicate swift flashing paddles, the trail and line and hooks and sinkers, the Seine, and hauling the Seine, small arms and rifles, the powder and shot and caps and wadding, the ordnance for war, the carriages, Everyday objects, the house chairs, the carpet, the bed, the counterpane of the bed, and him or her sleeping at night, and the wind blowing and the indefinite noises. The snowstorm or rainstorm, the tow trousers, the lodge hut in the woods, and the still hunt, city and country, fireplace and candle, gaslight and heater and aqueduct. The message of the governor, mayor, or chief of police, the dishes of breakfast, or dinner, or supper, the bunk room, the fire engine, the string team, and the car or truck behind, the paper I write on, or you write on, and every word we write, and every cross and twirl of the pen, and the curious way we write, what we think, yet very faintly. The directory, the detector, the ledger, the books in ranks or bookshelves, the clock attached to the wall, the ring on your finger, the lady's wristlet, the hammers of stonebreakers or coppersmiths, the druggist's vials and jars, the etui of surgical instruments, and the etui of oculists or aurists' instruments or dentists' instruments, glass blowing, grinding of wheat and corn, casting, and what is cast, tin roofing, shingle dressing, ship carpentering, flagging of sidewalks by flaggers, dock building, fish curing, ferrying, the pump, the pile driver, the great derrick, the coal kiln and brick kiln, iron works or white lead works, the sugar house, steam saws, and the great mills and factories, the cotton bale, the stevedore's hook, the saw and buck of the sawyer, the screen of the coal screener, the mold of the molder, the working knife of the butcher, the cylinder press, the hand press, the frisket and timpan, the compositor's stick and rule, the implements of daguerreotyping, the tools of the rigger or grappler or sailmaker or blockmaker, goods of gutta percha or papier-mâché, colors and brushes, glazier's implements, the veneer and glue pot, the confectioner's ornaments, the decanter and glasses, the shears and flat iron, the awl and knee strap, the pint measure and quart measure, the counter and stool, the writing pen of quill or metal, billiards and 10 pins, the ladders and hanging ropes of the gymnasium and the manly exercises, the designs for wallpapers or oilcloths or carpets, the fancies for goods for women, the bookbinder's stamps, leather dressing, coach making, boiler making, rope twisting, distilling, sign painting, lime burning, coopering, cotton picking, the walking beam of the steam engine, the throttle and governors, and the up and down rods, stave machines and planing machines, the cart of the carman, the omnibus, the ponderous dray, the snow plow and 2 engines pushing it, the ride in the express train of only 1 car. The swift go through a howling of storm, the bear hunt or coon hunt, the bonfire of shavings in the open lot in the city, the crowd of children watching, the blows of the fighting man, the uppercut, 1, 2, 3, the shop windows, the coffins in the sexton's war room, the fruit on the fruit stand, the beef on the butcher's stall, the bread and cakes in the bakery, the white and red pork in the pork store, the milliner's ribbons, the dressmaker's patterns, the tea table, the homemade sweetmeats, the column of wants in 1-cent paper, the news by telegraph, the amusements and operas and shows, the cotton and woolen and linen you wear, the money you make and spend, your room and bedroom, your pianoforte, the stove and cook pans, the house you live in, the rent, the other tenants, the deposit in the savings bank, the trade at the grocery, the pay on Saturday night, the going home and the purchases, in them the heft of the heaviest, in them far more than you estimated and far less also. And in them not yourself, you and your soul enclose all things regardless of estimation. In them your themes and hints and provokers. If not, the whole earth has no themes or hints or provokers, and never had. I do not affirm what you see beyond is futile. I do not advise you to stop. I do not say leadings you thought great are not great. But I say that none lead to greater or sadder or happier than those that lead to. Will you seek afar off? You surely come back at last, and things best known to you finding the best, or as good as the best, and folks nearest to you finding also the sweetest and strongest and lovingest. Happiness not in another place, but this place, not for another hour, but this hour. Man in the first you see or touch, always in your friend or brother or nighest neighbor, woman in your mother or lover or wife, all else thus far known, giving place to men and women. When the psalm sings instead of the singer, when the script preaches instead of the preacher, when the pulpit descends and goes instead of the carver that carved the supporting desk, when the sacred vessels or the bits of the Eucharist or the lathe or plast procreate as effectually as the young silversmiths or bakers, or the masons in their overalls, when a university course convinces like a slumbering woman and child convince, when the minted gold in the vault smiles like the night watchman's daughter. When warranty deeds loaf in chairs opposite and are my friendly companions, I intend to reach them my hand and make as much of them as I do of men and women. Leaves of grass. To think of time, to think through the retrospection, to think of today, and the ages continued henceforward. Have you guessed you yourself would not continue? Have you dreaded those earth beetles? Have you feared the future would be nothing to you? Is today nothing? Is the beginningless past nothing? If the future is nothing, they are just as surely nothing. To think that the sun rose in the east, that men and women were flexible and real and alive, that everything was real and alive, to think that you and I did not see, feel, think, nor bear our part, to think that we are now here and bear our part. Not a day passes, not a minute or second, without an accouchement. Not a day passes, not a minute or second, without a corpse. When the dull nights are over, and the dull days also, when the soreness of lying so much in bed is over, when the physician, after long putting off, gives the silent and terrible look for an answer, when the children come hurried and weeping, and their brothers and sisters have been sent for, when medicines stand unused on the shelf, and the camphor smell has pervaded the rooms, when the faithful hand of the living does not desert the hand of the dying, when the twitching lips press lightly on the forehead of the dying, when the breath ceases and the pulse of the heart ceases. Then the corpse limbs stretch on the bed, and the living look upon them. They are palpable as the living are palpable. The living look upon the corpse with their eyesight, but without eyesight lingers a different living and looks curiously on the corpse. To think that the rivers will come to flow, and the snow fall, and fruits ripen, and act upon others as upon us now, yet not act upon us. To think of all these wonders of city and country, and others taking great interest in them, and we taking small interest in them. To think how eager we are in building our houses. To think others shall be just as eager, and we quite indifferent. I see one building, the house that serves him a few years, or 70 or 80 years at most. I see one building, the house that serves him longer than that. Slow moving, and black lines creep over the whole earth. They never cease. They are the burial lines. He that was president was buried, and he that is now president shall surely be buried. Cold dash of waves at the ferry wharf, posh and ice in the river, half-frozen mud in the streets, a gray, discouraged sky overhead, the short last daylight of December. A hearse and stages, other vehicles give place. The funeral of an old stage driver, the cortege mostly drivers. Rapid to the trot to the cemetery, duly rattles the death bell. The gate is passed, the grave is halted at, the living alight, the hearse uncloses. The coffin is lowered and settled, the whip is laid on the coffin. The earth is swiftly shoveled in, a minute. No one moves or speaks, it is done. He is decently put away. Is there anything more? He was a good fellow, free-mouthed, quick-tempered, not bad-looking, able to take his own part, witty, sensitive to a slight, ready with life or death for a friend, fond of women, played some, ate hearty, and drank hearty, had known what it is to be flush, grew low-spirited toward the last, sickened, was helped by a contribution. Died aged 41 years, and that was his funeral. Thumb extended or finger uplifted, apron, cape, gloves, strap, wet weather, clothes, whip carefully chosen, boss, spotter, starter, and hostler. Somebody loafing on you or you loafing on somebody, headway, man before and man behind. Good day's work or bad day's work, pet stock or mean stock, first out or last out, turning in at night. To think that these are so much and so nigh to other drivers, and he there takes no interest in them. The markets, the government, the working man's wages, to think what account they are through our nights and days. To think that other working men will make just as great account of them, yet we make little or no account. The vulgar and the refined, what you call sin and what you call goodness, to think how wide a difference. To think the difference will still continue to others, yet we lie beyond the difference. To think how much pleasure there is. Have you pleasure from looking at the sky? Have you pleasure from poems? Do you enjoy yourself in the city, or engaged in business, or planning a nomination and election, or with your wife and family? or with your mother and sisters, or in womanly housework, or the beautiful maternal cares. These are also onward to others. You and I flow onward, but in due time you and I shall take less interest in them. Your farm and profits and crops. To think how engrossed you are. To think there will still be farms and profits and crops, yet for you of what avail? What will be, for what is well. To take interest is well, and not to take interest shall be well. The sky continues beautiful, the pleasures of men and women shall never be sated, nor the pleasure of women with men, nor the pleasure from poems. The domestic joys, the daily housework or business, the building of houses, they are not phantasms. They have weight and form and location. The farms and profits and crops, the markets and wages and government, they also are not phantasms. The difference between sin and goodness is no apparition. The earth is not an echo. A man in his life and all the things of his life are well considered. You're not thrown to the winds. You gather certainly and safely around yourself forever and ever. It is not to diffuse you that you were born of your mother and father. It is to identify you. It is not that you should be undecided, but that you should be decided. Something long, preparing, and formless is arrived and formed in you. You are thenceforth secure, whatever comes or goes. The threads that were spun are gathered. The weft crosses the warp. The pattern is systematic. The preparations have every one been justified. The orchestra have tuned their instruments sufficiently. The baton has given the signal. The guest that was coming, he waited long for reasons he is now housed. He is one of those who are beautiful and happy. He is one of those that to look upon and be with is enough. The law of the past cannot be eluded. The law of the present and future cannot be eluded. The law of the living cannot be eluded. It is eternal. The law of promotion and transformation cannot be eluded. The law of heroes and good doers cannot be eluded. The law of drunkards and informers and mean persons cannot be eluded. Slow-moving and black lines go ceaselessly over the earth. Northerner goes carried and southerner goes carried, and they on the Atlantic side and they on the Pacific, and they between and all through the Mississippi country and all over the earth. The great masters in cosmos are well as they go. The heroes and good doers are well. The known leaders and inventors and the rich owners and pious and distinguished may be well. But there is more account than that. There is strict account of all. The interminable hordes of the ignorant and wicked are not nothing. The barbarians of Africa and Asia are not nothing. The common people of Europe are not nothing. The American aborigines are not nothing. A Zambo or a four-headless crowfoot or a Comanche is not nothing. The infected in the immigrant hospital are not nothing. The murderer or mean person is not nothing. The perpetual succession of shallow people are not nothing as they go. The prostitute is not nothing. The mocker of religion is not nothing as he goes. I shall go with the rest. We have satisfaction. I have dreamed that we are not to be changed so much, nor the law of us changed. I have dreamed that heroes and good doers shall be under the present and past law, and that murderers and drunkards and liars shall be under the present and past law. For I have dreamed that the law they are under now is enough. And I have dreamed that the satisfaction is not so much changed, and that there is no life without satisfaction. What is the earth? What are body and soul without satisfaction? I shall go with the rest. We cannot be stopped at a given point. That is no satisfaction. To show us a good thing or a few good things for a space of time, that is no satisfaction. We must have the indestructible breed of the best, regardless of time. If otherwise all these things came but to ashes of dung, if maggots and rats ended us, then suspicion and treachery and death. Do you suspect death? If I were to suspect death, I should die now. Do you think I could walk pleasantly and well-suited toward annihilation? Pleasantly and well-suited I walk. Whether I walk I cannot define, but I know it is good. The whole universe indicates that it is good. The past and the present indicate that it is good. How beautiful and perfect are the animals, and how perfect is my soul. How perfect the earth and the minutest thing upon it. What is called good is perfect, and what is called sin is just as perfect. The vegetables and minerals are all perfect, and the imponderable fluids are perfect. Slowly and surely they have passed on to this, and slowly and surely they will pass on. O my soul, if I realize you, I have satisfaction. Animals and vegetables, if I realize you, I have satisfaction. laws of the earth and air. If I realize you, I have satisfaction. I cannot define my satisfaction, yet it is so. I cannot define my life, yet it is so. I swear I see now that everything has an eternal soul. The trees have, rooted in the ground. The weeds of the sea have, the animals. I swear I think there is nothing but immortality, that the exquisite scheme is for it, and the nebulous float is for it, and the cohering is for it, and all preparation is for it, and identity is for it, and life and death are for it. And thus I conclude the reading, or the fourth portion of the reading, of Walt Whitman's 1855 original edition of The Leaves of Grass. In this segment, there was several things that really came out. I love what he says when he mentions what will be, for what is as well. In listening to this, as I was reading it back and hearing the description of the whole, as if he's capturing the entire painting of life with all of the busyness that's out there, what I kept coming back to in my mind were the sounds of life, the sounds that we make as we live our human life, the journeys that we take in our own individual paths, and the constant transection, I don't know if that's the right word, but the constant overlay of the lives that all of us are leading in the bustle of the moment, of this moment of life, in this hour, in the busy places, in the quiet places, the sounds of the silence that pervade the sounds of the noise of the life itself being lived. I was most intrigued with this concept of loss, and he talks briefly about that. I'm not going to overly speak about what you just heard me read, but when he gets to the point in this portion where he talks about death, what I was considering, and this goes back to what I mentioned at the very beginning of this before I started reading this portion, about giving everything that you've got in the moment that you have, even when doing what you've got to do, and a lot of times it isn't even a choice, is not our first choice, may not even be our fifth choice, but what we give and what we're doing is in the effort of hopefully fulfilling our lives, finding this satisfaction even in things that may not seem like they can be satisfying, but also the hope of the satisfaction we might give to others as we give of ourselves, is this idea in coming up against the sense of death, the end, the unknown, the abyss that comes with that, of this very fine line of almost sanity and madness that comes along, and it's contending with the idea that after the dreams are gone, what? Is there any hope? And I think Whitman answered that question. And I'm not going to answer it because he already did in the reading. And I think hopefully you heard that it is the words, that it in the language of our lives, in the things that we pick up and understand and try to search for without having a full comprehension of why we find ourselves doing what we're doing. Maybe there, inside of that space, in those briefest of moments, we have something that's just enough to hold on to that reminds us that it not only is satisfying, but what will be, and it's right. It's exactly as it should be. And that it offers something that allows us to be bigger than the moment that we find ourselves in, and that we can enfold ourselves in the expanse of the environment of our lives. And that's something that I've been holding on to very tightly. Actually, that's the wrong way to say it. I don't want to say holding on tightly. I've been considering very deeply. There's nothing to hold on to. I think in the free space of our living, it's more letting go. And that's probably the better way to say it. And that's truly the feeling that I have. And maybe in letting go, I feel like I'm holding on tightly because I have to remind myself that the experience that I'm going through, the journey that I'm taking, isn't always really about what I control. And it has more to do with what I cannot. And that was something that was really powerful. This will be the conclusion of the fourth portion of The Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I really appreciate you listening. The fifth portion will come very shortly, and then there will be one further portion, the sixth, which I will release right after, prior to the conclusion. And then this podcast is going to delve into some brand new avenues. So I really appreciate you being a listener and your patience as well. This is a little mini project in and of itself, and the payoff through this, I hope, is immediate. And I also hope that as I bring this to an end, that I'm able to offer something to give you a little more sustenance as you go about your days. But I also am looking forward to the new avenues to come. So stick with me. There are 3 more podcasts around Whitman, and then there's some new material coming that I'm really delighted to be able to share. Please take good care of yourselves and enjoy this first day of summer. And remember, sometimes the language of our lives, what we see in and around the places that we fill, that's where the magic and the beauty really is. And it can happen in even the most mundane and most dank of places too. So keep your eyes out for those sounds, the sounds of life, the sounds of silence, and at the same time, the language in your heart that tells you that everything counts. And in this case, it counts in large amounts. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for being a listener. I'm Russell Cordell Staker, and this is the Small Hours Podcast. Thank you for being with me here in these small hours.